Okay. Good evening and welcome to the Unincorporated Alameda County Bicycle and Pedestrian Committee meeting. My name is Amber Lowe. I'm the interim principal civil engineer for the Transportation Division at Public Works. I'll be hosting tonight's meeting. Before we begin, let me go over the housekeeping announcements. We are conducting tonight's meeting remotely by teleconference. The teleconferencing guidelines were provided with the agenda. If you experience any technical difficulties, you may call our help desk at 510-670-5755 for assistance. Public participants will have an opportunity to provide comments when I open public comments for each item on the agenda. If you would like to provide comments, please raise your virtual hand and I will call on you. If you're joining us by phone, you can raise your hand by dialing *9. Each member of the public will have up to 3 minutes to speak. And I just want to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded. Now let's go over tonight's agenda. We will begin by calling the meeting to order and conduct a roll call. Next, we will move on to our public comments section, and the public may provide comments on topics that are not on tonight's agenda, including providing suggestions for consideration on future agenda items. We will then review the action minutes from our June meeting, and then followed by the presentation from the Alameda CTC. Item number 6 seems to be a repeat of what is already covered in public comments, but that's okay. If anyone would like a topic to be considered for a future meeting, you can suggest it when we get to number 6 also. And then the meeting will be adjourned. Okay, and with that, the first item on the agenda is call to order. Halima, would you please conduct the roll call?
Good afternoon. Parvin Ahmadi, David Berman, Sharon Bohoman, Chanita Chu, Bruce Doogie,
Here.
Rachel Factor, Daniel Leary,
Here.
Carmen Lopez, Aaron Salez, Cindy Torres, Matt Wayne, Nikki Winty,
Here.
Michael Williams,
I think he's here along with Jonita in the guest on the guest side.
Crystal Wang.
Here.
Okay, we're moving them over.
I'm here. It's Chanita. I'm here. Thank you.
I am here, and thank you, Dan.
So we have we have 6. Let me make sure we have 7. We have Daniel Leary, Chanita Chu, Nikki Winty, Michael Williams, and Crystal Wayne. I show 5. Bruce, Bruce do 1. We're at 6. We're at 6 now.
Nikki Winty was here.
Yes, that includes Nikki Winty. We have Chanita Chu, Bruce Doogie, Daniel Leary, Nikki Winty, Michael Williams, and Crystal Wayne.
Oh, Nikki's back. So
Okay.
we have 7.
So we're still at 6. So we may get one more.
Sorry, my internet just went out and I fell off, but I'm back on. This is Nikki Wente.
Great. So we're at 6 right now.
6. Okay, so we don't have quorum tonight then. We can continue to have the meeting, but we just won't be able to vote on the like the action minutes, but you know, we can still talk about it. Okay, so let's go to item number 3 on the agenda, which is public comments. If anybody would like to speak on a topic that's not on tonight's agenda, please raise your virtual hand. And if you're calling by phone, you can raise your, you can dial star 9, sorry. Let's see. For my panelists, Halima, your hand is raised. Kind of confusing. Chonita?
Yes, Chanita, did you say Chanita?
Yes.
Aye, that would be me. Yeah, I just want to let everyone know that the Healthy Living Festival is an in-person event at the Oakland Zoo on Thursday, September 29th from 9 to 2. And we're promoting health and wellness, and the flyers have been going out, and you all should have also received your brochures this week in the mail. Also, too, we need a lot of volunteers. If anybody's up for volunteering, I know you're volunteering, Michael. Thank you. We have day before setup shift, day of the event, and cleanup. So if anybody's interested in volunteering, call Tanya, and you get a free County Supervisor Nate Miley t-shirt. So I just want to let everybody know United Seniors is having this year's Healthy Living Festival. Again, that's September 29th. If you have any questions or comments or concerns, please call our office at 510-729-0851. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. We have one in the attendees, Roy Taylor. I'm going to unmute you.
Thank you, Amber. I actually wanted to comment on the previous agenda item in terms of the number of attendees as well, which continues to be quite low. And it's noticeable that there's a number of members of the BPAC that have never attended any meeting since the very first one 2 years ago. So possibly it's time to look at or understand a little bit more about the reasons why people are not attending, and the people that have never attended, you know, possibly it's time to look for replacements for them. On this item of public comment, I did want to make a couple of suggestions for possible improvements that either the group here could look into, or Public Works themselves could just look into. The first is on Crow Canyon. There was recently a new bike lane added on Crow Canyon, which is very nice, thank you. But there are a couple of safety issues with how some of the striping has been put down. In particular, the striping does not continue through any of the junctions. And it's particularly difficult if you are cycling along Crow Canyon at the Greenridge intersection, where traffic coming down the hill from Greenridge, there's no stop sign. They've simply merged into Crow Canyon. And that traffic's moving pretty fast. No one slows down there. It's moving at, 30, 35 miles an hour coming down that hill. But there's no indication that to those drivers that they are actually merging into the bike lane and need to cross a bike lane to get over into the lane on Crow Canyon. So I just encourage you, as you kind of look at the designs, to think about putting the striping for bike lanes through the junctions, because it's I would imagine, fairly low cost. It really wouldn't have altered the cost of that project very much to do that, but is a pretty significant safety improvement for cyclists. So that's just one example, but I'd kind of ask you to look at that as a more general design principle maybe to adopt. The other quick request I wanted to add is on Coal Canyon, which is currently being resurfaced. It's a very, very popular cycling route, Coal Canyon. It's relatively quiet of traffic, although the traffic that goes down there does drive extremely fast. So given that you are resurfacing, it would seem to be a great time to add some chevrons, maybe, and possibly even signage to make drivers aware that, you know, cyclists do have the right to use the lane, and to really look out for cyclists, given it's such a popular route. It's obviously not wide enough for any kind of bike lane, but if there's anything that can be done there in terms of striping, that would be great. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Okay, moving on to item number 4, the consent item again. I don't think we have a quorum. Nobody else just came in. So does anybody have any comments on the meeting minutes from last time though? No. Okay, so we'll just defer approval of that to the next meeting. Okay, and then item number 5 on the agenda is our presentation tonight. We have Jay De Los Reyes from the Alameda CTC, and he's going to be presenting on the East Bay Greenway Multimodal project.
Thanks, Amber. Let me share my screen. Is my, just to verify, is my screen share? Okay. So thank you to the Unincorporated County Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee to allow Alameda CTC to provide this update for the East Bay Greenway Multimodal project, which is a priority project for Alameda CTC. Again, I'm Jay De Los Reyes. I'm a principal transportation engineer with Alameda CTC, in charge of the delivery of this key project for the agency. Just kind of a brief overview of how this presentation is going to be delivered, talk about the project background, the need, discuss and highlight some of the project elements, really a focus on the public outreach in coordination with Alameda County staff and some of the various working groups that we will be presenting at, and then just a high-level overview of the schedule. Just kind of as a quick introduction of who Alameda CTC is, we are an agency that plans, funds, and delivers transportation programs and projects in Alameda County. We are formed by a voter-approved measure known as Measure BB, and project partners for this project are shown on the right-hand side of the screen. So diving into the East Bay Greenway Multimodal project itself, this project has a long history, and there's been lots of different iterations of this project. The more known iteration of work that was done back in 2018 is what Alameda CTC is now pursuing as our phase 2. We call it the East Bay Greenway Urban Trail. That was a conversion of railroad right-of-way that was owned by Union Pacific Railroad into a Class 1 facility. Just due to some challenges in delivering that project, our commission took action in December of 2021 to focus on near-term improvements that can be delivered in a 3 to 5 year timeframe, which we now call the East Bay Greenway Multimodal Project. And what you can see here on the screen is just the overall project limits. It still maintains the same 16-mile corridor that was originally envisioned to begin at the Lake Merritt BART station and take you all the way down to the South Hayward BART station, with a now focus on implementing a safe, high-quality bicycle facility for all ages and abilities. One of the predominant changes, particularly here in Alameda County, for the communities of Ashland and Cherryland, is the shift of the multimodal alignment that you can see on the green over into East 14th to tie into several projects that are already constructed in Ashland and then on its way to be constructed in Cherryland. Just a bit more of a high-level overview into why the focus has moved over into the East 14th Street corridor is just recognizing that there are a lot of developments that are occurring along the corridor that could potentially provide that mode shift and encourage active transportation that we as Alameda CTC want to ensure that we provide those safe facilities for residents in the central portion of Alameda County. And more importantly, going back to the idea of safety is just this need to increase multimodal safety. What you see here on the screen are locations of the high injury network in Alameda County. And what you can see in the county portion that hasn't been completed yet, particularly from the City of San Leandro border to 162nd is for the pedestrian. You can see it's part of the pedestrian high injury network where there are injury accidents located in the upper 20th percentile in the county, overall located on East 14th Street. And you can see that it just also completes and just stops shy of the county limits for the bike high injury network. We've also done some speed surveys on the corridor, and one of the things that we've heard related to providing an all ages and abilities type facility is the need to make the facility slower. And what you can see here on this screen is that the portion in the county, the posted speed is at 35 and the mean average speed is 30 miles per hour. The 85th percentile, which is typically what speed limits are set at, is about 37 miles per hour. There are opportunities, though, to bring these speeds back down. There has been legislation that has been approved by the state, known as AB 43, which provides that opportunity, and we will coordinate further with county staff at Public Works to see if those opportunities are available as we develop this project. Now, diving into some of the project elements of what could be anticipated, particularly on the segment in Alameda Unincorporated, Ashland from the city limit at San Leandro to about 162nd Avenue. Protected bikeways, these are just examples for illustrative purposes of what would be connected. We have developed a concept that the city of San Leandro has approved. So in a sense, we would be making and completing that kind of missing piece, if you will, that ends from where we got approval from the city of San Leandro at the Bayfair Drive intersection and taking it all the way down to 162nd Avenue. And one of those elements would be the transition for protected bikeways. Other elements for consideration, if space allows, are protected intersections, which just provides a safer facility for all users of the street, for pedestrians through the bulb outs, for cars and bicyclists, reducing that interaction point that also curbs speeds, so that the larger turning radius or the tighter turning radius forces cars to slow down, which provides greater visibility for both pedestrians and bicyclists through intersections. So we will also be evaluating where these could be applicable in the Ashland portion of the alignment. Also recognizing that these multimodal facilities have impacts to AC Transit. We are working with AC Transit on providing facilities that allow for the transit boarding islands, similar to what has been constructed further south, that just provides a separate facility that is both safe for pedestrians and transit users, while also trying to accommodate bicyclists and trying to reduce and minimize the conflict zones between all of the users on the street. Other elements of the project relate to potential economic development. which is just recognizing the importance of how transit infrastructure can provide improvements to the business settings, and particularly in this portion of the county, which serves as a major economic center for the Ashland community. Going into the stakeholder outreach, so several pop-up events. Our project team has gone out into the neighborhood in Ashland and Cherryland and Castro Valley as well, to just bring some attention to this project. It occurred in August. We recently just completed some business owner survey and working with the county on questions to go door to door to those businesses who would be impacted by improvements that are being proposed and developed along East 14th. So we will also be sending out a mailer that will be pointing to an online survey so that we get a broader reach of residents and interested individuals to allow them to comment on the project and features that we'll be proposing. And then we'll also be going back to the Eden area map in November to kind of provide an update one of the outreach that we've received, and as well as provide some updated concepts based upon what we've heard as well. So the project, we are working on conceptual design once we have wrapped up the survey and the public outreach in late 2022 and early 2023. The goal and the intent really is to obtain environmental clearance for the project in working with the county, so that both together, Alameda County and Alameda CTC and our project partners and stakeholders such as AC Transit, we can move forward in trying to find the necessary funds for construction, which will allow us to work on the design as well, so that design could start in 2024 and construction can occur in 2025. So with that, that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
So,
We have
yeah.
one person raising their hand, Roy Taylor.
Okay, let's let the committee members speak first, and then we'll go to the public. I think I saw Bruce Doogie's hand first, and then Dan's. So Bruce?
Yes, thank you so much for the presentation. I'm super excited about being able to ride up to Oakland with not so much stress, because I already do that. And I take Bancroft. One of the questions that I have, I think you sort of alluded to, is that San Leandro is part of this new alignment. So is that the Bancroft corridor? Is that the because they're planning to put protected bike lanes in there? Is that part of this overall realignment? I guess that's the first question.
It isn't. So the realignment in San Leandro specifically is along San Leandro Boulevard and East 14th Street. We are coordinating with City of San Leandro's staff, but the Bancroft project is a separate project that the city is responsible for.
Wow. So then how about, because East 14th gets very narrow right around the high school, just a block or two north of the high school. It's pretty narrow. Is that going to be a problem for putting in some kind of protected, any kind of bike lane, really?
The width of East 14th Street, there's certainly challenges with respect to how wide it is from curb to curb, but we are working with city staff and Caltrans to try to make sure that we can provide a separated facility that can one, reduce that level of stress that you were talking about. The city's project, though, I can't speak to, since I do know that Bancroft kind of runs right in front of San Leandro High School. I don't know what the level of improvements are for that one.
Gotcha. So it's a separate thing. So they're pursuing sort of both at the same time, is what you're saying?
Yes. So you're going to kind of have two types of facilities that are near each other, but to the benefit of City of San Leandro residents and facility users.
Yeah, I mean, I just think it's fantastic. Like I said, we have to go up to Oakland for various kinds of business, and And that's just going to be a fantastic corridor. Thank you so much.
Dan Leary?
Yes, thank you for coming to our meeting and making a presentation. First question I had was a little bit more about the goal of the project or the project scope of work. Is it specifically, because we're a bicycle and pedestrian committee, and so I'm just trying to get understanding of, is it just for bicycle connection, or is it also for pedestrian improvements also?
It does include pedestrian improvements as well. I think one of the project features I probably went over quickly was that it does include upgraded crossings through there. So where we do those improvements for bicyclists, we also are still thinking about pedestrians as well.
Because one thing that I'd like to ask you to consider is the thing about East 14th that is unfortunate. The reason it's almost like this river that divides like neighborhoods is there's not enough crossings. Like there's a big distance from one crosswalk to the next, sometimes as much as 600 feet. And so I think one of the big challenges might be, if it can be part of your project scope of work, is to add more mid-block crossings. And even if you didn't have the funding to do those right now, if those were planned, at least considered as part of the design, and then maybe, because you have to deal with the bikeway as it would cross through those potential mid-block crossings.
Certainly, we do recognize that on East 14th, there are long stretches where there are no crossing opportunities. So we definitely want to make sure that we provide those to reduce jaywalking across a very busy corridor. And we'll certainly work with public works staff.
And it might help with this, the slowing of the cars too. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the different types of right turns that are going to be happening. You know, the right turns at the unsignalized intersections, and then the right turns at the signalized intersections. And I also saw, at least in this configuration, there's two intersections that actually have right turn lanes, one at Bayfair going southbound, and there's one at the Bancroft Hesperian, maybe both ways, or maybe that's also in the southbound direction. But I assume these will be class 4 bikeways. And would you be considering eliminating some of those right turn lanes, and what's going to be the philosophy of the project in terms of the right turns versus the bikeway?
Yeah, those are certainly challenges that we are continuing to refine. And when we get through what those details actually look like, because I think in light, those intersections happen to be in areas where we are also evaluating protected intersections, that we'll come back and provide an update of what that actually looks like. So right now, that's a conceptual, a concept level. We still have to, especially on that portion of the roadway, that is a Caltrans facility. So there's another entity that we have to work with. So
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, so East 14th north, or right at the city limit, as you go north, is a Caltrans facility.
Okay. Amber, I have a couple more questions, but I think I'll defer to other people and will I have a second chance?
Oh, yeah, sure. Thank you. We can come back to you. You want to do that? Okay. So from attendees, we have Roy Taylor. Roy?
Thank you, Amber. Thank you for the presentation. It looks like a fantastic project, actually. Let's hope it works all the way through the funding and gets to completion. Quick point, maybe my point I made earlier around the bike lanes being continuous and the striping through the junctions and past driveways. I'm not sure what you're considering for that, but if it's possible to look at that, I think it's a huge safety element for cyclists when the lane is quite clear and continuous. Appreciate you coming along to do the presentation. I did have a comment more on this being the only topic on the agenda. And this is the purpose of this BPAC is the unincorporated BPAC. And the purpose of this is to provide advice back to Public Works on their projects in the unincorporated area. The ACTC, I think, has its own BPAC. So whilst I think it's great to hear about this, it's really, I think we're going to be a little short of agenda items today to fill in the time. And it would have been nice to have seen Public Works come along and put some of their own projects that could have been discussed as well, or even some of the items that the members of the BPAC have suggested as well that they'd like to discuss that could have easily have been scheduled today, given the amount of time that seems to be left over. But I really like your project. I think it's a great vision. It's going to be great to actually ride on, the real roads instead of always having to kind of take back streets to find, somewhere with less traffic that feels a little bit safer. So it makes a huge amount of difference in the time savings if you're trying to commute, because you're on the direct path and it tends to be a little bit more point to point. So it's really nice to see those kinds of improvements. So thanks for coming along today. Thank you.
Okay. Michael Williams.
Yes. Hi, thank you. So, Jay, I understand the general concept of the East Bay Greenway, which is a rails to trails conversion or rails with trails option, depending on how all that goes. And I understand we had to do this workaround on the East 14th, so I get how that works. But from, say, Fruitvale BART to San Leandro BART, what road or what street is the project on at that point? What's that alignment? Because we're not going to be on the rails. So I see where it jumps over to East 14th, but I don't know where it is.
It's actually on San Leandro Street.
Okay.
So the city of Oakland has a improvement project called the East 12th Street project. So as you leave, if you will, the Fruitvale BART station, they're doing improvements on East 12th from about the Fruitvale BART station, let's call it 35th Avenue, all the way down to 54th Avenue. And then you'll come down 54th Avenue to take you to San Leandro Street. And then as you proceed south, San Leandro Street becomes San Leandro Boulevard. And that's how the two projects will, that's how the alignment will tie itself together.
Okay, got it.
We are not proposing anything in the tunnel. So I just want to make sure that's clear.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's fine for me. Thank you.
Okay, Bruce, did you want to speak again?
Yeah. I just wanted to ask about funding. I saw that you had on your chart that, so it sounds like you have funding for some design work because you're working on it. And what's the story on the funding, especially the construction that you had listed there?
So we're actually taking a split approach, if you will, for delivering the project, a north segment, which was a focus of Oakland and San Leandro, and we are actively pursuing grants for that portion of the project, particularly the active transportation program and the solutions for congested corridor program, which are both Senate Bill 1, or what was known as the gas tax. Those funding opportunities, we've submitted several grants. A lot of things are looking positive for those. So that's closing those large gaps, particularly in the county, what we're calling the south segment of the project. Just due to the length that there is in the county, it's about 0.3 miles is what we're actually looking at. Measure funds, as well as other grant opportunities, such as reconnecting communities, to make sure that we can deliver the project all the way through into South Hayward. So that's kind of what our funding picture looks like.
So did you guys submit for the cycle 6? Did you guys submit ATP cycle 6? Oh, okay, thank you.
We did submit for cycle 6, and we're teaming with Caltrans actually for solutions for congested corridors.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Dan? You're on mute, Dan.
Thank you. One suggestion I have is you talk about lowering speeds along East 14th. And one element I think can really help with that is the art improvements. I don't know if you've noticed that on East 14th, but I don't know if it's just the beauty of things that help people slow down, but also having more vertical elements in the road. And then the county, as you know, has a arts commission that can be very supportive in that. And I think that's a real big asset, you know, for this kind of a project, is adding those features. It doesn't add too much cost, I don't think, relative to the cost of pipes and curbs and all that. The second thing too, since you're pretty early in the process, I'm not sure if, I know that it's a north-south corridor, but are there linkages in between and potential side street destinations that could even dictate the overall alignment? And I'm sure you'll be doing some studies to not only understand, you know, how many cars are turning and all that, but also where the bikes are going and where, like, which, because BART is kind of off on, you know, angled streets, and then there's schools on the sides, and, you know, the alignment could relate to that too for the corridor.
Right. We're evaluating this, or we're thinking this project more of like a spine, if you will, for connection. So it's kind of the if you build it, they will come type of mentality. So, you know, if we provide the backbone or the spine or north-south travel, then the opportunities for project partners to connect into that start to open up.
Okay. And my last question is, I was going to ask about, you know, with things changing now a little bit with the stormwater requirements from the state, you know, as you know, for these type of sidewalk and bicycle improvements, we were not really forced, just do best practices basically, right? And we all want stormwater treatment, but we're here to advocate for bikes and pedestrians. So we want as much money as you have to be spent towards that. And any early planning you can do to find the best, most effective way to use, you know, to meet those standards. And I don't know if this is a big enough project where you could even have some kind of offsite mitigation, or if with some early planning, maybe with some of the elected officials could help with that.
Yeah, that's certainly a challenge that we have to be mindful of, is just how stormwater treatment works when you have facilities, or the build out of the area, if you will, is pretty constrained, both outside of the street width and then just where those facilities could exist as you go north and south in the corridor.
Okay, thank you.
Amber, you're muted.
Michael?
Yes, I'm going to go again, just on two suggestions. One of the things that you kind of brought up after both of these. So one of them is, as you know, I mean, I'm always going to advocate for the San Lorenzo Creekway project, which Jay, I know you're aware of the name, but you know, for all intents and purposes, it's about a 5-mile east-west spine, as you said, that follows the San Lorenzo Creek, the channelized portion between the bay and goes inland to downtown Hayward. But my point is that at the midpoint along Washington and right between the two BARTs, between Bayfair BART and Hayward BART, at the midpoint, and Amber has seen this too, we've shown in our ATP application, we've shown where we are coming off the Creekway, that very strong east-west class 1 facility, and we're coming off, and we're going to sign, refresh, restripe, sign, but enhance the class 3 connections to both of the BARTs, Bayfair BART and Hayward BART, from the Creekway. So in a sense, that really kind of replicates what's going to happen on East 14, kind of supports, it's a north-south segment, but it's coming from a class 1. So I want to just throw that out there, and probably at some point, as you know, future iterations of the plan, you may want to show that when you get to showing more detail. I'll send it to you just so that you have it, but it's just something to consider to show that we are, you know, we have other connections that are strongly supporting and connecting to at least those two BARTs at that location. And then the second thing, because of that, we'd also advocate that Hayward Area Recreation and Park District be considered a partner on this too, because yeah, we're Parks and Recreation, but because of the Creekway, we're entering the active transportation, you know, field, and we want to connect, you know, communities and parks, and we have the ability to do it with our relationship because of Alameda County Public Works and flood control districts. So that's just sort of a recommendation, but we definitely want to support the project. And I think there's things that we will bring to the table with the Creekway project that will support this and bring some elements to bear that could potentially get built out even before your project moves further forward. So just throwing that out there.
That's certainly appreciated, and I think further coordination will be in contact.
Okay, great, thanks.
I don't see any more hands from the committee members. Are there any more comments from you guys? I do have one hand up in the attendees. I can call on that person. No comments? Okay. Bruce King.
Hi, this is Bruce King from Castro Valley. I appreciate the need and the value of putting the bikeways on Mission and East 14th Street. I think that's a long-term value. I'm kind of, I guess I've got a question because I know the alignment originally was to go along the railroad tracks. So I was wondering if you could maybe give us a quick update on whether or not that is still a long-term objective and what I understand the railroad is not necessarily cooperative, but maybe you can fill in some details there and explain what's going on, why we can't get it along the railroad alignment, and whether or not we are still going to include that as an objective. Thank you.
Yeah, so certainly the East Bay Greenway, let's call it a program of projects now. There's the multimodal and the urban trail. The urban trail, which is that rail to trail or rail with trail project. When the commission took its action back in December of 2021, it included a 3 timeframe vision, if you will. The short term being the multimodal project, the medium term is actually the extension of the BRT, and the long term which is 8 to 10 years or 10 years plus, sorry, is the rail to trail or rail with trail project. So it still remains, it's just further out as we work through coordinating with Union Pacific Railroad to see that timeliness of when they're ready to work with us to come to a more reasonable price. As when we presented back in December of 2021, just the costs of that project, the total costs when you consider right-of-way are approaching $600 million for the rail with trail project.
Thank you.
Okay. I don't see any more hands up. If there are no more questions for Jay. Okay. Thank you, Jay, for your presentation. Thank you for coming and sharing about the project tonight.
Thank you, and thank you everyone for their comments. We'll certainly take them into consideration.
Thank you. Okay. See, next item, number 6 on the agenda is future agenda topics. If anybody want to suggest any topics to be considered for future meetings. Bruce?
Yeah, I have a few. One of them is a demonstration project, or demos in general, I guess. Demonstration projects are pretty valuable to get people's feedback. You know, it gives people an idea of what the project could look like, and it kind of really motivates people to give their input, I guess. So, you know, in particular, something I know there's been a proposal for Somerset and higher in Castro Valley. So that's one thing that would be great to add. Another thing would be some kind of discussion about Vision Zero. You know, Vision Zero would be you know, becoming more common throughout even the Bay Area. It's all about basically taking into the account that people will make mistakes. And so when they make a mistake, that they don't kill somebody. So So we design our infrastructure such that when people make a mistake, you know, fewer injuries and deaths occur. And then I know that the placemaking, the economic, civic and development department from the county was working on placemaking signs, and they were supposed to come to us. You know, they went to the MAC, and then I suggested that they come to us because they weren't really including bicycle and pedestrian aspects into their signs, and they said they would. And so far, we have not heard from them. So that would be, I can't remember their names, but I can find that. But that's basically wayfinding signs around the county. And then I think another thing is bike boxes. I don't see any bike boxes in our county. There's a couple areas that would be particularly useful. So what happens is we often have a bike lane, and then once it crosses an intersection, the bike lane disappears. And so if you don't know that in advance, then you really get squished. The worst case of that is actually northbound on Redwood as you cross Castro Valley Boulevard. So there's that bike lane that runs along Redwood, and then as soon as you cross Castro Valley Boulevard, it disappears, and it's extremely narrow on the other side. So if we could have a bike box that would allow cyclists to get in front of the car like we're supposed to be, instead of to the side of the car fighting the car, then we would then have be able to assert our use of the lane and travel up Redwood, you know, in front of the car like we should, instead of in a much safer manner. There's a similar one on Matix going, I guess that's eastbound or northbound, you know, kind of curves, coming back to Castro Valley. This is the same thing, but it's not so narrow on the other side, but it would still be good to have a bike box there because, well, for one, then you kind of allow the right-hand turn people to turn if they want, that are stuck at that intersection. And then it would, again, allow the cyclist to ride in the front, which is what I have to do anyway when I take that intersection. And then the last item is really, I know we've talked a little bit about ramps, pedestrian ramps, but I would like to have a discussion on pedestrian ramps, you know, double versus single. I know there's a certain geometry for slopes and things, but one of the key enablers to being able to have double pedestrian ramps is to have actually much sharper radiuses. And we generally in the county have very large sweeping radiuses that encourage high-speed turning. So it would be nice to be able to sharpen those edges and then to put in double ramps, just like our bike plan in our toolbox. You know, they actually call for double ramps, as does NACTO. So it would be really great to implement some double pedestrian ramps, or at least talk about why we might not be able to. That would be great. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. Thanks for your suggestions. Dan? Dan, you're on mute.
Two of them here. I like the idea of a Vision Zero topic and also curb ramps. Thank you.
Thanks. Are there any more suggestions from the committee? If not, I'll go to the attendees list. Okay. From the attendees, oh wait, Bruce?
Oh no, sorry. I guess you didn't take my hand off.
Oh, I thought I did. Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. Roy Taylor?
Yeah, thank you, Amber. I actually would kind of iterate a lot of what Bruce said, but I might kind of just put a theme around that of design standards. It would be really great to see this group have the opportunity to discuss and kind of make recommendations around, you know, maybe what you might call modern design standards. Because one of the issues, you know, particularly I live in Castro Valley, is the inconsistency of design. If you look at crosswalks, sometimes they are white stripes. Actually, in England, we call them zebra crossings because it's a black and a white stripe. But sometimes they're these white stripes. Sometimes they're actually yellow. There are some on Castro Valley Boulevard that are actually red. If you look at bike lanes, they actually don't look like bike lanes. They look like shoulders because there's usually only a stripe on one side. And the way that bike lanes are striped is exactly the same way that shoulders are striped, which is why there's always a lot of confusion with vehicles parked in bike lanes. So I just think it would be really good if this group could, collectively think about what are the right standards, and then let's just have consistency in how, pedestrian crossings, bike lanes, turns are all marked, which can't be fixed overnight, but gradually as resurfacing is done and restriping is done, they could at least get to some level of consistency, because I think it's very confusing for drivers when there are so many different variations of how things like crosswalks are actually marked and striped. And then the second one is, I think there is a project coming up at some point at the west side of Castro Valley Boulevard around Norbridge, Strawbridge, with the reconfiguration of the freeway off ramps there. It's called Burger Island, where the McDonald's is and the Wendy's and all that stuff. I think it did go to the Castro Valley MAC quite a while ago, but there's bike lanes in that area. There's sidewalks that are going to get changed maybe. And there's really opportunity to connect with the bike lane on John Drive and create, and the bike lane that's already on Stanton, and, create a continuous bike lane from that end of town down. I think it's Norbridge, it might be Strawbridge, I always get them mixed up, down to the BART, and then continue past the BART where there already is a bike lane on Norbridge coming back onto Castro Valley Boulevard. You'd actually have a pretty, fairly unusual but continuous bike lane across Castro Valley there as an alternative to Castro Valley Boulevard. So I'd really like to see that project come up for discussion here as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Roy. Okay, Bruce King.
Hi, this is Bruce King from Castro Valley again. There's East Bay Muds is planning a project. They're working on the environmental impact reports and things for it at the San Leandro Rock Quarry, which is in Unincorporated County on Lake Chabot Road. It's just south of the Bay Vista Swim and Tennis Club. And their objective is to, for the next 40 to 80 years, dump soils from their trenches at the rock quarry and fill the rock quarry in again, and then to build trails on that and connect those trails to the Fairmont Ridge. And initially they're showing a small parking lot where cars can park so that people could access the trails. So long term, in 40 to 80 years, bikes and pedestrians also should be able to access this site. And right now, East Bay Mud's not showing any facilities that pedestrians and bikes could get there. For example, pedestrians should be able to walk from the Bay Vista area past the swim club, and right now it's a very narrow visibility is poor on Lake Chabot Road there, and it would be dangerous to be walking there. And right now we also have a lot of cyclists coming along Lake Chabot Road, and that's the one area where cars can't see the cyclists, and cyclists are trying to get uphill. And long-term, East Bay Mud is, for 40 to 80 years, going to have dump trucks coming there to deliver soil. So the traffic, especially with big trucks, is going to increase. So anyways, it's something that we as a community should keep our eyes on and give input to East Bay Mud as they develop their plan here. And they are getting community input right now. So I provided input to them through the Castro Valley MAC meeting the other night. And but a lot of my input was on the habitat they were not planning on putting back. But I also commented on the pedestrian and bike issues. And it seems to me that now's the time to give them some input on pedestrian and bike access, short term and then long term. Thanks.
Thank you. Did anybody else have any suggestions for topics? Okay, if not, the time is now 6:57 and the meeting is adjourned. Our next meeting is going to be in December 22nd, and we're going to send out the agenda before the meeting. Thank you for joining us tonight. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, everybody.
All right, thank you.